transfers today, and it looks as though Mason Mount will in fact be going to Manchester United after all. The two have agreed a deal for the player, £55 million and another £5 million in add-ons. Means the 24-year-old will be Erik ten Hag's first signing of the summer. He's currently on his holiday, but his medical is set to take place next week. Let's welcome in our Manchester correspondent, Rob Dawson. We've also got Kieran Gibbs with us as well. So tell us more details about this deal, Rob, because we'd heard that previous improved offer wasn't going to be accepted, and now here we are, and it looks as though all is well again.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there was a situation where United were desperate to buy him. Chelsea wanted to sell because of his contract situation. Mason Mount wanted to move to Old Trafford, and when you've got all three of those parties really agreeing, it's only really a matter of time before it gets done. There was a little bit of complication over the fee. Chelsea valued him at one point at about £70 million. United's first bid was about £40 million, so there has to be a bit of negotiation there somewhere. Eventually they've come to an agreement, and Man United are going to get their man eventually.
We've asked Rob to put together an 11 for Manchester United, with Mason Mount in it.
That's one of the things that, one of the big questions was like, how is that going to work? I mean, on paper, yeah, you look at it and there's a lot of talent there, but, you know, Anthony and Sancho have not consistently played well, that's factual. And Mount and Fernandes, obviously very good players, but that's, you know, and I know we're going to talk about Arsenal later on with Havertz potentially going into the middle of the park or deeper with Odegaard and Declan Rice, and how that is a very attack-minded Arsenal midfield. I look at that and think, and I know it's up for debate, I look at that and think Casemiro would have to move hell on earth to cope with all those attacking players around them. So that's one of the big questions here is you know, how does Mason Mount fit in, because Bruno Fernandes is not great defensively. Mason Mount will work. He's a real worker as well. His attitude is great, but you wouldn't say he's a defensively minded midfield. He's more of an attacking midfield player, stroke guy that can play in the front position. So yeah, that just looks to me as if, to be honest with you, that wouldn't work. That certainly wouldn't work against the better teams, because there's not a lot of defensive nous in the middle of the park apart from one guy who's in his 30s, and that's a lot to ask of Casemiro. So I think it is one of the big questions, is how will a Mount signing fit in to Ten Hag's plans going forward. So
we're seeing that Eriksen isn't in that 11 there from you, Rob, but Rashford at the top there. Is that what's going to happen? They need a striker. Is it just going to be Rashford in charge of scoring the goals again next season?
Well, and that's the big question. You know, United fans will be happy that they've finally got a signing over the line and Mason Mount will arrive. But the question that a lot of them will have is, where's the striker? The pressing need this summer was to sign an established goal-scoring number 9, because they just haven't had one. Erik ten Hag quite likes Anthony Martial, but he just wasn't fit enough last season. Marcus Rashford, I put him there as a centre-forward, but he would prefer to play on the left. United need a striker. The problem that United have got this summer is the budget, that they're spending £55 million on Mason Mount. There isn't an awful lot left to sign a striker. There's certainly not £100 million plus to go and sign someone like Harry Kane. So you're shopping in at a lower level. You're looking at players like maybe Rasmus Højlund at Atalanta, who would, maybe cost sort of 70, 60 million. Well, he's not an established goal scorer. You're looking at a lower level than perhaps Man United fans think that they need. Really, United fans would say that the one player that they needed this summer was a striker. It's great that they've got a midfielder and Mason Mount's going to arrive, but they have to sign a striker this summer.
It's embarrassing, isn't it? I mean, I know it's only end of June, but it's embarrassing. I mean, Mason Mount's a good player, but they're not going to be doing cartwheels down Market Street in Manchester because they've signed him. They're just not. I mean, he wasn't a regular at Chelsea in the end last season. He's not in the first 11 for England. So he's not like the elite of the Premier League and the England squad. He's a good player, really good player. You know, he can cover a lot of positions. But as Rob said, Manchester United are going to be no more than an afterthought again, trying to scrape into the top 4 like they did last year in the end, if they don't address the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is the striking position. When Arsenal needed a striker, they went and got themselves a Brazilian international in Jesus. When City needed a striker, they went and got Erling Haaland. When Liverpool needed a striker, OK, hasn't worked out brilliantly yet, they went to Benfica and paid big bucks for Darwin Núñez. This is Manchester United we're talking about. And I know there's an ownership potential change coming up. But you're going to leave Eric Ten Hag high and dry if you're asking him to play Marcus Rashford through the middle for the whole season, when last year he scored all those goals, the bulk of them from the left-hand side, and he looked great. That sent Eric Ten Hag, we're just going to treat you like how we've treated all the other managers, basically. And quite frankly, for a club of this size and this stature, whether there's an ownership change coming up or not, if they don't get a striker this year, it's an embarrassment.
Do you agree with that, Kieran?
Yeah, I do. They need a striker, Kay. They need a striker. But Craig's right. It's coming from the ownership. You know, it comes down to that for me. Until that's sorted, it's always going to be up in the air. They don't know whether they're coming or going. So, you know, why are they going to give Ten Hag the funds? And it's disappointing because he's done so well to get them into the top 4 this season. And I feel like he's squeezed out everything he could to get them there. You know, so it'd be a waste if they don't go and double down. But it's just where the fund's gonna come from. But yeah, they need a striker. I like Mason Mount. I think Craig's right again. I don't think he's a marquee signing for them. It's a good start in terms of summer signings. You know, he's young, he's hardworking, he's talented. He's as good, if not better, than what they've got already, in my opinion. And I think with all of the players leaving Chelsea, looking for fresh starts, I think he's one of the ones that you would tip to do well. He's got a good manager. I think he fits the way they're going to play. I liked Mason the most a couple of seasons ago when he was at it when they won the Champions League. He was the trigger for the way they pressed and the way he ratted. He was instrumental for them. So I think he's going to have a lot more impact than Craig's saying in the midfield. I think he's a disciplined boy. So and he's got the character to deal with being at a big club. So I think that they're not going to have to worry too much about that. But they definitely need another striker. They do.
Rob, if there's not money in the budget for a top-level, top-end elite striker, is this? I mean, I don't know. Is this a financial fair play issue, or is this purely the fact the Glazers are not making the funds available? They're just saying to Ten Hag, the funds are not available, we're not prepared to put the money in that you need.
Well, the message from United is that it is a financial fair play issue. Now, obviously, they would say that. You know, I think a lot of fans will look at it and say, well, the Glazers don't put any of their own money in, and that's the problem in a way that City's owners do put money in. United's message privately is that it is an FFP issue, that they owe an awful lot of money on old transfers. About 300 million is outstanding that needs to be repaid. They haven't recruited well over the last sort of 5 or 10 years. They certainly don't sell well. FFP becomes a lot easier if you sell well and make profit on players, make profit on academy graduates. United just haven't done that. And because of that, United are sort of saying that they're working within a budget of between around 100 to 150 million this summer on new players. Now, if that's right, and you spend £55 million on Mason Mount, there's not an awful lot there for the rest of the squad. You know, the goal this summer really has to be getting this squad challenging Manchester City. You know, that might seem like a million miles off because they've just won the treble, but that's got to be the ultimate goal. You know, Mason Mount is a step forward, but he doesn't get you there on his own. There are other areas of the squad that need addressed. You know, we've already spoken about the striker. They probably need a goalkeeper at the very least. They probably need a right back. They probably need another midfielder and another striker to go with the striker that they already haven't got. You know, you're talking about quite a big rebuild still. And unfortunately, the money just isn't there for it.
See, I would have said, you know, I would have looked at it and said, yeah, I agree with Rob. I mean, I thought Dalot last year early on was fantastic. And then Wan-Bissaka came in and actually did well. But his deficiencies going forward in particular are just going to be a concern long term. And then you're looking at the midfield and other areas. And I'm looking at that money and I'm thinking, well, OK, I've got, and I'm not the biggest fan of Fred and McTominay and one or two others.